working with functions. We learned about how to deal with the functions, right? So a few basic points we learned about these functions. Technically, what is a function? And we discussed about what are anonymous functions, anonymous functions, how to define anonymous functions. Usually, when we generally use anonymous functions is important. Actually, anonymous functions are mostly used on callback mechanism. They are mostly used on callback mechanism, right? So technically, how it works, we will see. We will understand about that. Callbacks you will see in various other options also. What is a function and how the function works? That is the first basic thing we have learned. And generally how to define a function with callback mechanism means general parameterizing. Next important is we need to know about function and its parameters. We need to understand about the function and its parameters. What are the functions and how to use those functions, parameters technically. Actually, why we need those parameters also important for us. So function parameters usually nothing but whenever we want to modify the function, right? The function needs the parameters, need to be defined with the parameters. So let's see. So some important points. So first option is, after understanding anonymous function, one more important function parameters. Generally, function parameters, why a function needs parameters. Usually functions need parameters. Technically function need parameters. So in order to modify the functionality, that means a function uses parameters in order to modify the functionality. So generally, to modify the functionality, let's see. So to even change the behavior of that particular functionality on certain occasions, it needs parameters. So how these function parameters are defined and what are the rules about these function parameters? Let's take a look about that. Actually, so why a function needs parameters? So for example, now here we are creating a list. So let's create a function. So function name as print list is a function. Now, so for example, suppose print numbers is a function. Print numbers is a function. Now in this function, I am writing a loop for where I is equal to 0, I less than or equal to 10, then I plus plus. I am writing a simple for loop and console.log I, the value of I is printed here. So we return a simple function for printing 10 numbers. And when we call this print numbers, it is going to print those. So what we are doing is here we are creating a class and a demo. In the class demo, we have public, so print, and this print is calling, so print numbers function, print number function, right? So directly you can write the logic here. I'm just differentiating. So we are writing function and the function is printing 10 numbers. And we are accessing that here. Now important is I will access this class. So let obj is equal to new demo. And we created an object for that. And obj dot print, we are calling the print method here. Now what is the purpose is simple. Actually what it is doing, it is printing the numbers. So here tsc demo.ts and the node demo.js, and it is printing 10 numbers. It is printing 10 numbers. So it is printing 0 to 10. I want to print 1 to 10 and I can print that 1 to 10. So it is printing those numbers. So it is printing the numbers from 1 to 10. Now here I access these print numbers again. The functions allow reusability. And I access print numbers function again, print numbers function again, print numbers function again. Then usually it will print the same again. It will print the same again. That means every time it is used to print only 10 numbers, it is printing the number again. Every time it is using to print only 10 numbers. But I want the same function to print different count of numbers. I want to modify the functionality. At that situation, generally, we need a function with parameters. We need function with parameters. A function uses parameters in order to modify the functionality. Here, so many points are there. We will see that. Actually, we need parameters. We need parameters to modify the functionality. For example, we are writing a function. And function name. And this function is having parameter. This function is having parameter. And important, this function is having a parameter. So every parameter that you defined in a function is mandatory. Every parameter that you defined in a function is by default mandatory. That means you cannot ignore. You should pass. And the parameters that are defined here, this area is called function. This is called function signature. This is called